Picard makes an all-call on the intercom, explaining that he believes we are now in a strange place where thoughts and the physical are connected in some way. What we think becomes reality. So, everybody, clear your minds.
The choice is made.
Whoa!
The traveler has come.
Nobody choose anything!
Oh, no, not again.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Welcome aboard.
Jean-Luc Picard to the Starship Enterprise.
You want to review your rapid progress?
That nonsense is centuries behind us. To the Starship Enterprise.
Oh, yeah?
That is enough, damn it!
Tempo, mon capitan.
To the Starship Enterprise.
But you can't deny that you're still a dangerous, savage child race.
Of the planet Earth.
You just don't get it, do you, Jean-Luc? That is the exploration that awaits you. Not mapping stars and studying nebula, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
Heldor Joy, and welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a comedy Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
And we have some 2025 announcements to make.
Cool.
We have a 2025 announcement to make. We want to let everybody know that we are coming back to Omaha, Nebraska, March 15th and 16th at the Oakview Mall in Omaha, Nebraska. We'll be there at QuadCon. This is the one that we've talked about. They do a lot of like mall events, and we did, Becca and I did this one last year. We're actually going to be visiting family in Illinois, so this is perfect. Like on the way there, we'll stop off and do a con, and then we'll drive on.
And Allie will go home.
It's going to be a good time. These mall events are really cool. If you're in Nebraska, the mall events are free. You don't pay to get in. And they have all of these vendors set up just around the mall. So you can just, walk around and pick up some merch. It's a good time. So come on out. Maybe they'll have a bowl of apples or some fabric with a nice gold pattern on it at the Oakview Mall on Farpoint.
Maybe the mall will sense whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it will just appear in the window.
Well, we'll be there, so you should come on out and see us in Omaha, Nebraska, March 15th and 16th at the Oakview Mall. We are 6 episodes in, and I think I have sufficient evidence now to nail in the coffin my claim that TNG Season 1 is TOS Season 4. So, Your Honor, I submit the following. Encounter at Farpoint sets up the humanity on trial bit, which is the large overarching theme that we're going to do in this series. The naked now is the naked time. Code of Honor has that amok time stuff at the end where they, beam her away and save her life at the last minute.
Right.
The last outpost is basically Arena with the Gorns. And this episode, Where No One Has Gone Before, has to be like Where No Man Has Gone Before, right? Where's Gary Mitchell? Who brought the LDS? The LSD?
I was like, LDS, Latter-day Saints. What?
Lucy in the sky with diamonds. Gary Mitchell with his kaleidoscope eyes.
His aluminum foil eyes.
Well, it's time for Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 6, Where No One Has Gone Before.
Commander, you'll soon be getting an intruder alert.
What? I've got something, sir.
Intruder alert, sir.
It's an old-style starship, sir. Constellation class, heading this way under impulse comm.
Number 1, kindly take charge of our guests until we have time to decide what we're going to do with them. Sir, number 1, keep them out of my way.
So I guess we should mention, like, right off the gate, like, there's a little correction in the phraseology here of Where No Man Has Gone Before.
At least they're acknowledging, okay, we know they're doing it. They're doing it on purpose. And it's not this is something they meant to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the phrase, like, where no man versus no one, back in the day, we used the word man to refer to like mankind or humankind,
Yeah.
not males necessarily.
Right.
But now in the late 80s, we are thinking about that as a difference. Yeah.
Gender.
We're starting to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that they punched it up and made it more inclusive.
The beginning of the opening shot was of the USS Fearless pulling alongside of the D. And this was actually footage that was reused from the Encounter Farpoint, except it didn't have 4 in the background. So same, reused footage. Why couldn't we get that question?
Right? The USS Fearless and the USS Hood.
Hood out.
Must be the same model starship, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the USS Enterprise has rendezvoused with the Fearless. They're bringing on 2 Starfleet experts, Kaczynski and his assistant, who shall remain nameless. They're beaming over to conduct some tests on the Enterprise's warp drives. And Kaczynski had previously made adjustments to 2 other ships, but they're like, the Enterprise is like brand new. It's like shiny, brand new, a year out of space dock. And like Picard's like, we don't need this.
Yeah, so on the bridge, Picard and Riker are like in the middle of an argument about this. The supposed increase in engine performance that the other 2 ships reported. Riker thinks the specs this expert Kaczynski sent are just gibberish. You see, unlike Earth in 2024, the Star Trek future places high value on science. And when Data and Riker took Kaczynski's formulas and ran them in a controlled simulation test, there was no measurable difference in engine performance. Point, set, match. Gibberish. Off to the next adventure.
Captain was kind of adamant though, but he's like, well, we're doing it. And then he's like, well, here, you can go and assess the visitors then. We're still doing it.
And Riker's like, I'm going to take Troy with me so, we can read their minds a little bit. Isn't that convenient to have on the bridge? Every starship ought to have a mind reader aboard.
A mind prober.
In the transporter room, Kaczynski, who is notably missing a comm badge, did you catch that?
Oh, no, I didn't.
He wasn't wearing a communicator at all.
Maybe because he doesn't belong to a ship, or does he? I mean, I don't know.
Right?
That's a
but
good
later we'll see like
question.
admirals come on and stuff, and they all have. Anyway, Kaczynski and his assistant beam in, and Kaczynski is played by Stanley Kamel, who listeners might know as Dr. Charles Kroger on Monk.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a big Monk person, were you?
I was.
Yeah.
I loved Monk. Every time I've seen him, like, he plays sort of a good guy there, but he's one of those actors that mostly plays the baddie. Not always, but mostly.
His big break was playing Eric Peters on 182 episodes of Days of Our Lives in the mid-70s.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Minyuk plays the ham-faced traveler, or at this point, the assistant, as we know him, the assistant.
Right.
And Eric was also up for the role of Data. We got that one right.
Woohoo!
We will see him again in the future on Star Trek. So put a pin in him, I guess. Also in this scene is Argyle, who Riker introduces as one of our chief engineers. So again, at first, there was not a chief engineer, but several. And Argyle is played by Biff Yeager, who is in a bunch of stuff, but may be best known as Tom on 13 episodes of Gilmore Girls.
Never watched it.
Will Wheaton, hey nerds, used to write episode reviews for the Huffington Post TV.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find this?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I read an archive copy of his review for this episode, and he talks about a memory that he isn't sure if it's entirely true because he was 14 at the time, and you know how brains work. But essentially, he had heard that Biff was being considered to be the permanent chief engineer until producers found out that he or someone acting on his behalf had been asking fans to write in letters asking for more Argyle, which may have worked, except that some of those letters referenced episodes that had not been released yet.
Oh.
And so that's how they knew it was an inside job, and they shipped his ass off to Starbase 80.
Damn, Starbase 80.
Oh wow. Yeah, and that's the last we've heard of Argyle.
Right.
Trying to cheat the system.
Yeah. Just so be careful when you're working a write-in campaign trying to get a permanent job on Star Trek. Just be careful.
Make sure you're feeding your plants the right information.
Okay, so where were we? They beamed aboard, introductions all around, and Kaczynski is annoyed that the captain wouldn't be attending to this personally. So he's a real arrogant dick, this guy, and every office has one of these guys, right?
Walk in, they know everything. They demand you drop what you're doing. I'm here. And, that kind of thing. So, yeah, he's got to settle for Riker being there. Troy, is doing her thing, trying to suss out the Traveler or because we humans can't pronounce his name.
Yeah, this guy's from Tau Alpha C, and Riker's like, that's really far away, which is your first red flag that you something's a little odd about that.
Mm-hmm.
And his name is unpronounceable by humans. Star Trek loves to do that bit. They've done that over and over again.
And I guess it just tries to paint a picture of this guy is so different from everybody else. We can't pronounce his name. When Riker starts asking about the assistant, Kaczynski kind of just like cuts him off and, this is all approved. Now let's get started.
Yeah, he's in a real big hurry to get down to the engineering playset and get stuff set up. And he pushes his way between Riker and Argyle to leave, and the assistant and Argyle follow. And so alone, Riker and Troy have a moment to have a conversation about how pompous and arrogant and overbearing and self-important this asshole is. But that assistant, she doesn't feel anything from him. It's like he's not even there. Do we ever consider he might be an android like Data? That was my first thought. If it's like there's nobody there, maybe he's an android, and that would have been a TOS move for sure, right? If the end of this had been the big reveal that the assistant was an android all along, that would have been totally TOS. Well, there's something off about all of this, and that sends us to theme.
Mr. Data, would you explain?
After the theme, we're in engineering, and Kaczynski comes ripping in like he owns the place, ordering people around, and then he's like, what is this child doing here?
I know.
Have the boy sent to the bridge, number 1.
My name is Wesley.
It's Wesley I wanted to speak to you about. The boy?
My name is Wesley.
He seems to have developed some sort of special attachment to the boy.
My name is Wesley.
Did he say Wesley? The boy?
My name is Wesley.
What is the boy doing here?
My name is Wesley.
The boy. Where is he, please?
My name is Wesley.
The boy? He's outside.
My name is Wesley.
Wesley Crusher, report to the bridge. On the double.
Poor Wesley, always in whatever episode, whatever scene he's in, he always gets the shit.
Yeah. Wesley's working on a school project, and while Kaczynski keeps pontificating, in the background we see the assistant go to Wesley and lean over like he's looking at his work, checking out what he's studying. Argyle's got questions, and a lot like that scene where Geordi recites the same thing everyone says when they learn about his visor.
Yeah.
But with a lot more attitude, Kaczynski says, I know. You've received all the information which Starfleet provided, fed it into your computer, ran controlled tests, and shock of all shocks, nothing happened. So you were like, what the hell? This doesn't work. Kaczynski's a fraud. Apparently, this is the same conversation he has over and over again on every ship they go to.
Argyle's like, well, are you saying you can't explain it? And he's like, look, I'm not a teacher, but if you want me to, I will. How basic shall I be when I break it down to you? Will you want me to get out the crayons? I was like, dang, this guy is such a dick.
And he's throwing off like major charlatan vibes here, like overly confident, insufficiently vague. If this guy had a snake oil cart or some religious tracts, I wouldn't be surprised. He insists that this is all approved by Starfleet Command, but Riker says you also need the chief engineer and me on your side too, which Kaczynski's like, I didn't realize that was going to be an issue. And Kaczynski's like, well, I'll just go over your head then. Where's your captain? But he's clearly unaware of the workplace dynamic around here. That's not going to work. So as he begrudgingly explains what he's doing, which is, again, like a lot of words and very little substance.
I like how he started talking all this techno babble, and then they switch over to Wesley and the Traveler. I guess we're calling him the Traveler now. And we still hear him running his mouth in the background. And Wesley's kind of looking over his shoulder at this different console, and Traveler senses that you're bothered by what you're seeing, right? And he's super smart. He's like, well, you should do this and put this here and do this. And then the Traveler says something that I'm like, okay, what? The Traveler says, now it will do what Kaczynski says? I'm like, hey.
Mm-hmm.
Red flags. But overall, the Traveler is really impressed with Wesley's knowledge.
The voices fade back over to the engineering table console as Kaczynski is still blathering on about nothing. And he finishes with a flourish. Riker asks Argyle if anything he's proposing could damage the Enterprise in any way. And Argyle's like, how could it? It's meaningless. Kaczynski gets big mad about being talked about in the third person as if he's not standing right there.
I'm right here.
And he yells at the boy to get his hands off the console. Picard arrives on the bridge and gets on the phone with engineering as the experiment begins. LaForge engages at warp 1.5, and we cut around between the warp core lighting up faster and faster, Kaczynski randomly mashing buttons proudly, and Wesley watching the assistant work. The assistant looks away briefly, and that seems to send the experiment off course. Then we see him brace his hands on the console, close his eyes, and start to wink out. And Wesley seems to be the only one that notices this.
Right. He goes translucent for like a couple of seconds and then comes back.
The warp core is flashing at a ridiculously fast rate now as Geordi announces they're exceeding warp 10. And we get a great visual on the view screen where we normally see stars, points of light zipping by. Now it's whole star systems whizzing by them.
They first show the Enterprise like stretching as if it's going fast. And then they've gone to plaid.
What the hell was that? They've gone to plaid.
There's a shot of Kaczynski here that communicates something, although we really don't know what yet. Like maybe he's a fraudster and he knows it, maybe more than that. But you get kind of a sense that he's not as all-knowing as he'd like everybody to think he is.
And it's almost like an, oh shit, did we do this? Look on his face.
On the bridge, velocity is off the scale, and Picard orders reverse engines, although that's never been tried at this speed. But it works.
Why don't you just, and I know you brought this up in the last few episodes about reversing engines. Why don't you just stop instead of, is that stopping?
If you just stop your engines, Stefan has helped us with this before.
Oh, that's right.
If you just stop your engines, then you'll continue at that speed indefinitely, except for how gravity of the different bodies in the universe affect you.
So your inertia will keep you moving forward probably, but that's true. But then if you reverse engine.
So they have to reverse engine, so they're pushing.
Against nothing.
Right.
Yeah, but
it's
they don't.
It's a sci-fi show.
But they're not pushing against anything. I know. Fine.
Geordi and Data, neither one believe what their instruments indicate. They've left the Milky Way galaxy, passed through two others, ending up on the far side of Triangulum, a galaxy known as M33. Data says they have traveled 2,700,000 light years. And LaForge adds that at maximum warp, it would take over 300 years to get back home. And the camera cuts to the bridge of the Voyager where Kate Mulgrew just rolls her eyes.
This ain't your mama's Delta Quadrant.
Anybody's got any other ideas? I'm listening.
We could set up a bicycle in the mess hall, attach a generator, pedal home.
Now, why didn't I think of that?
And I volunteer Harry to take the first shift.
The captain makes an entry in the log saying this is going to be a little bit unusual, assuming Starfleet is ever going to receive this message. Because of a surge of power during the warp speed experimentation, they're out of their own galaxy and well over 2 million light years in just a few minutes. So we don't know if we're ever going to get back.
Riker and Argyle arrive on the bridge with Kaczynski, who is rather pleased with himself, says he made a mistake, a wonderful, incredible mistake. And as he goes to explain what happened, Riker and Picard agree that it all sounds like gibberish again, except here we are, where no one has gone before, so there must be some validity. In engineering, the assistant is clearly not well, and everybody just fucking left him there with Wesley?
Nobody's paying any attention to him. He offers to take the assistant to his mother because she's a doctor, and he says there's nothing you can do. And he says, I've been away too long. That's kind of foreshadowing because we don't know what that means yet. And Wesley tries to understand, what happened to him. And then is Mr. Kaczynski, is he a joke? Because does he really know what he's doing, or was that you that did that?
And then Wesley's like, and space, time, and thought are not the separate things they appear to be? And the assistant's like, yes, not exactly. And don't you ever speak like that again. You hear me? Not at your age and not in a world that is not ready for such dangerous nonsense.
And he slaps him hard across the face. Back on the bridge, Kaczynski is talking about, I've always expected that we could go this rate, but never have I actually done it. And then I'm sure Argyle was being sarcastic here. And he's like, well, maybe you can call it the Kaczynski scale.
Kaczynski's confident in his ability to do this again and get them all home, and he leaves to go back to engineering to prepare, leaving the bridge crew to discuss. Worf is concerned about letting this guy have another go, especially since it was a mistake that brought us here. Geordi takes the, this guy is our only chance position, and Data would rather study the giant protostar that's in the process of forming nearby.
I mean, I'm kind of with Data.
Mm-hmm.
What's the harm? And look where you are. Like, hopefully you'll get back. It's not gonna, a few minutes isn't gonna hurt.
So lots of opinions all over the board, and Picard settles on, we should go home, and if this guy really can repeat this, then they can send a true science vessel back out here to study it.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense.
Yeah. So down in engineering, Kaczynski is speechifying again, and Wesley slips over to Riker and tries to tell him that he doesn't think Kaczynski had anything to do with this. But now's not the time for Riker.
Not now, boy. Yeah. He's just brushed off, and he's like, I'm sure it's fascinating, but not now.
Speaking of brushed off, Kaczynski says to the assistant, come on, let's go. Like in this real harsh tone, like
slave.
Like we've talked so many times about Picard's great leadership style, this is the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
As Wesley points out, the assistant is not well, and you're just barking orders at him. Like this is a living being. This is a person. Come on. And fucking Wesley, for some reason, when Wesley suggests, well, Kaczynski, why don't you just do it on your own then? If you're so fucking smart. And Kaczynski's like, yeah, okay, I will. The assistant steps in and she's like, no, I'll help.
He's like, no. Because I think we know by now this dude has no idea what the fuck he's doing. So back on the bridge, LaForge is laid in the opposite course to go back. And then they start this shit all over again, beginning at warp 1.5. And unfortunately, in engineering, Kaczynski says, this isn't working. The assistant is back at his console and working as hard as he can, kind of sweating a little, and he's got both hands on the console, and he's doing the vanishing and reappearing again. And this time is when Riker sees it as well.
When they stop, though, they're not back home. It looks like they're inside a blue nebula cloud thing. And there's the weird lights that like travel the path that I thought was really fun. Where the hell are they?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, this looks like they're in a cartoon because that's what it looks like. They're in TAS.
Boy, don't play with it.
Captain's log informs us that we are now over 1 billion light years from our own galaxy.
Jesus Christ. That's way worse. He's made it worse.
Picard's had enough, and he's going down to engineering himself to handle shit. And after he leaves, Worf hears some growling, and we see a Klingon Targ Worf's pet Targ from childhood, to be exact. And he, pets it, but just as soon it disappears.
Tasha's like, are you telling me that's a kitty cat? I read, and again, this is from Memory Alpha, so I don't know how accurate this is, but the Targ was played by a wild boar from Russia named Emilu.
I was expecting Igor or Ivan.
No, and they said that
Emilu.
It stunk so bad that they had a hard time getting rid of the smell.
Oh my God. Maybe the Targ smell was the reason they made such a big fucking deal about the carpet on the Enterprise in Picard season 3. Then an orange cat appears on Tasha's console. Picard's in a turbo lift headed to engineering, and when the doors open, he almost steps out into space.
Oh my gosh, that is my worst fear when I'm on an elevator, is that you open the door and it doesn't open in the right place, and then you fall down the elevator shaft. That's like I literally think about that every time I go into an elevator.
This is the part of the episode that I had disconnected in my brain, I guess. I did not remember that this stuff was from the episode where we had the Traveler. In my brain, for some reason, I thought those were two different episodes. Just weird. So the doors close, and when they finally open again, he's cautiously steps out into the hallway.
Meanwhile, on the bridge, Tasha's having her own little episode. She's stroking this cat that shouldn't even be there, first of all. And then suddenly she's back on her planet and being chased by rape gangs. And she's all sweaty and everything. And then when somebody puts a hand on her shoulder, she jumps, and it's Geordi, and she's back on the bridge.
Somewhere else on the ship, we see a Starfleet person playing a Mozart piece with a group of period costumed players. In the hallway, a man and woman seem to be running away from something and beg for Picard's help. Don't you see what's following us? But the corridor is empty from Picard's view. He walks past a cargo bay and sees an ensign in a ballerina costume dancing around. And when he interrupts her, she's suddenly back in uniform, like she snapped out of it. The guy that was playing Mozart is suddenly alone at a table with no violins in sight. So there's a lot of weird shit going on all over the ship.
And then he turns a corner, and now he sees an old lady sitting in the middle of the corridor, and it's his mother. And she says, and I'm surprised they don't do this in French, but she says, you know, you look tense, Jean-Luc. Come and have a cup of tea. Tu as l'air tendu, Jean-Luc. Venez prendre une tasse de thé.
Well done.
Merci. It's his mother. And surely he's got to know this ain't right. This ain't real.
Well, he's like, yeah, but you're, and she's like, dead. Yeah, I'm dead. But I'm always with you, you know? And he's like, yeah, I felt that. Why did she appear here and now? And this particular vision seems to be aware in a way that the others maybe have not. She asks if he thinks this is the end of the universe or perhaps the beginning. And he's like, wait, what do you know about this place? Where are we? But then he's interrupted by Riker bopping around the corner. And he turns to look at Riker. And then when he turns back again, Mama is gone. Herta Ware, is that how you pronounce that? Herta Ware plays Yvette Picard. She has a really fun family connection to Star Trek. Here, she plays Picard's mother. Her daughter, Ellen Gear, later plays a character in a season 5 episode, and her granddaughter, Willow Gear, plays a background character in season 1 of Picard.
Nice.
So there's a whole family Star Trek connection. I love that. Picard is clearly shaken by this vision of his mother and takes a moment to regain his composure, but then he taps a wall panel and calls for general quarters, red alert. As he arrives in engineering, we see that Dr. Crusher has set up a temporary bed and is tending to the assistant. Picard makes an all-call on the intercom explaining that he believes we are now in a strange place where thoughts and the physical are connected in some way. What we think becomes reality. So, everybody, clear your minds.
The choice is made.
Whoa!
The traveler has come.
Nobody choose anything. Did you choose anything? No. Did you? My mind is totally blank. I didn't choose anything. I couldn't help it.
It just popped in there.
Oh, no, not again. Oh. This reminds me of being on, is this Shore Leave? This is Shore Leave.
Yeah.
This is more than one TOS episode in one because it's a clear your mind.
Yeah, you were absolutely right.
So, yeah, I don't know. He somehow gets that, figures that out, that he must have been thinking about his mom, I guess, and suddenly she appeared. So I guess that's how he gained that understanding.
The whole thing comes unraveled now. Riker declares Kaczynski had nothing to do with any of this. He was just mashing buttons like a cat walking across a keyboard, while his assistant made all of this actually happen. But Kaczynski, really believed that he had something to do with it.
I expected him to give up a little bit more of a fight, but he said, man, I honestly thought it was me.
Yeah.
I thought I did it, Somehow I thought maybe I was operating on his level. And then, of course, Argyle says, I shouldn't have let him do it. It's my fault, too, because I should have known better to let him do it.
And Picard's like, well, nobody could have known. And Riker's like, actually, Wesley knew, and he tried to tell me twice, and nobody listens to that boy, and so here we are.
They never learned their lesson.
And the bad news, the one guy who was actually doing all of this is now unconscious. Wesley explains about the winking out, and Beverly says he's dying. The assistant is dying.
Where none have gone before.
They do a quick captain's log here that, yes, they don't know where the fuck they are. Their only chance of getting back is a dying alien, but they can't, because of his physiology, they can't even begin to diagnose him. They're in sick bay and Crusher's trying to do her thing, but her equipment just doesn't register any of his life signs.
I love the biobeds in Star Trek The Next Generation with the little thing that comes up over their chest.
Mm-hmm.
It's got all your readouts right there.
Yeah, I think it makes more, from a science fiction perspective, it makes more sense than just laying on a bed.
Yeah, right. How did the original series sensors get their heartbeat and their respiration rates and all of that stuff?
It was on a thing above the bed on the wall.
Yeah, I much prefer this torso cover thing. Wesley stops by to check on his friend, and of course Picard is like, "What is that fucking child doing here?" And Riker says, "You may want him here. He seems to have developed some sort of special attachment to the boy." And Wesley's like, "Guys, I have a fucking name."
My name is Wesley.
Come on.
They did that on purpose. It's just a thing that they were going to carry through the show.
I feel like when, spoiler alert in 3, 2, 1, I feel like when Worf's son comes on board, they do this the boy shit to him too. I feel like that's a thing I remember. We get a tug of war over the assistant because Picard wants him woken up because they got to get the hell out of here ASAP, or they may lose their ability to separate thought from reality. And Dr. Crusher, who worries her patient might die if they bring him around too soon. That's a classic medical scene.
What's the right thing to do? Should you wait and let him recover and tell everyone to just clear their mind? Or do you wake him up now and risk him dying? What's the right thing to do?
Yeah. Well, Picard wins this fight, and Beverly administers a hypospray, waking the alien up. This is when we learn that the being is a traveler of all of space and time who has been using his extraordinary abilities in propulsion to get around on Starfleet vessels. There's no destination. It's all about the journey, man. He's just an explorer like we are, and allowing Kaczynski to take credit for his abilities made sense at the time.
He's really only there to observe and experience their reality. He doesn't mean any harm to the crew. And then Picard's like, wait, our reality? And that's when I think they get it, wait, this is a different reality. And the traveler says, yeah, I made some mistakes. And some mistakes.
Oops, sorry, guys.
This is a billion-mile mistake.
He confirms that we are, in fact, millions of light years from where we started, and explains that thought is how all of this works. He asks if they understand that thought is the basis of all reality. A very powerful energy, thought is. And the Traveler acts as a kind of lens which focuses thought. Kaczynski's like, come on, you guys, this sounds like gibberish. And they all just stare at him in gibberish. Like that's all you've been saying the whole fucking time.
So Kaczynski doesn't even know how it works with him. He's just taking this guy with him. He doesn't even know how he's doing it.
But Picard seems to think this makes sense a little. Only the power of thought could explain what has been happening. And the Traveler warns of the danger in being here in this place, in this essence of thought, chaos. He's very apologetic, though. He was just out here, an astronaut on some kind of Star Trek.
Who is this jerk? Don't call him, he could turn off my music.
And we learn that the Traveler is sort of from a different time, although not stated, but probably like not linear time, probably more outside of time. And there are others like him. And Riker's like, oh, for fuck's sake. Q, is that you? Can you just leave us the fuck alone for once?
Riker asks a really good question. He's like, why don't we have any record of ever coming in contact with you? And the Traveler's like, there's no record because we haven't fucking bothered to visit you before because you weren't interesting enough.
This is part of the argument for why we haven't been visited by aliens on Earth, right? First of all, if there are other life forms, a minuscule number of them would probably have achieved interstellar travel. And of those that have, they probably haven't strayed too far from home. And of the small group of those that have, they would find Earth boring as fuck, except maybe for our reality TV show political system. Otherwise, we're boring.
But we don't know. Maybe they have tried to visit us. And it's sort of one of those, you only get one shot because it's such a far away journey. And then we probably fucking killed them. Hey, this is a UFO. Shoot it.
Yeah.
That's what we do. So, I don't know.
The Traveler loses consciousness again, and Picard insists he be revived again. Riker and Picard are hypothesizing about what may have happened to bring them here. And Kaczynski butts in, but Picard's like, can you get us back? No? Then shut the fuck up. This was funny too. Kaczynski is on Data's team. He's like, let's just stay here and do science. But Picard's like, and do what with our observations exactly? Where would we send them? Who would we report them to?
Right. They can't even get back. So what's the good of all this science?
So the Traveler agrees to bring them home, but before they can drag him down to engineering, Wesley interrupts. He's concerned that his new friend is too weak for this. But the Traveler says the captain is right. We have to try and we have to hurry. But first, a private moment with the captain. So everybody leaves, the Traveler and Picard alone. And it turns out Wesley is the topic of conversation. The Traveler's like, look, you shouldn't tell anyone else, especially the mother. Because whatever happens must progress naturally. But this little Doogie Howser kid is why I travel. And he explains that Wesley is special, not unlike Mozart, another child genius. Wesley can do with time, energy, propulsion, and the instruments of the D what Mozart could do with music and instruments. So encourage him, but definitely do not tell him this.
So back in the corridor, Picard orders Riker to take the Traveler to engineering. And on the way, Picard runs into a guy that's like almost on fire. And he's yelling at the crewman, put it out. And he's like, how? He's like, with your mind.
My crew is on fire.
Captain makes another, as he says, meaningless captain's log because any time entry is meaningless. They're going to have to repeat the same experiment with one variation. And basically, they're just going to depend on the Traveler's thoughts to get them back home. We don't know how this works. It's a fucking crapshoot here, but here we are.
So Picard makes a ship-wide announcement. It is vital, absolutely vital, that you center your thoughts on your duty or on the welfare of the one called the Traveler. Think of giving him some of your strength. Think of him as someone you care deeply about. ready, set, go. And then everybody's like thinking real hard and wishing and hoping and like Care Bear staring. And there's somebody in a corridor clicking their heels together saying, there's no place like home. There's no place like home.
And Troy actually feels all the well-being. She senses it all over the ship, and it feels amazing.
There's one other important piece of this puzzle. Kaczynski, knowing that he's useless, might throw the whole thing off. So they've got to like talk him up a little bit, and the Traveler kind of throws him a bone, and he's like, I need you at one of the stations. Just mash buttons like you did before, I guess.
He's like, you need me? You really need me? Oh, my God.
So Kaczynski's belief that he was making all of this happen had something to do with it, apparently. We start to see the Enterprise zipping through space again, but it's not enough, and in engineering, Wesley picks up on this and reaches out and takes the Traveler's hand, and that seems to have been like the pick-me-up he needed, because he starts winking out again, the warp drive is going bonkers, and then suddenly, the Traveler is gone.
Data reports from the bridge that they never left warp 1.5. But their instruments, according to LaForge, they're exactly where they were before the sleigh ride, he says, began. And of course, we get a little moment there where Data like, oh, what is that? What is the sleigh ride? Riker comes in and reports that the Traveler is completely gone. He's completely phased out of existence, at least our existence. So we don't know if he's really dead or just gone somewhere else. Since he's so weak, I have no idea whether he was dead or not.
Right. I think he's just left our reality.
Yeah. That's what I'm hoping.
No spoilers or anything.
I wrote a rhyme about him anyway.
Picard makes an all-call to announce their success and the loss of the Traveler, and then asks Riker to have the boy sent to the bridge to join them for chair chat. So Riker calls Wes to the bridge on the double. Chair chat this week is a bit of good fun, and this is the same energy they've given before when it came to Wes on the bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Picard orders him onto the bridge and offers him a seat in the big chair, and Riker points out that per Picard's own orders, that's not allowed, only commissioned officers. And they're like talking about Wesley as if he's not standing right there. And Wesley's like, it's all right, guys, I get it, it's okay. Picard's like, boy, don't interrupt me. Back to the Picard and Riker discussion. Picard's like, any commissioned rank, you say, even ensign? Yeah, that would give him access to the bridge. All right, well, I guess I'm just going to have to acting Ensign Wesley Crusher. And so then they make a big production of entering this in the ship's log.
Bless his heart. Wesley, he's so happy. He's beaming from ear to ear. And Picard says, you can sit here and learn something.
Picard makes it clear to Wesley that whether this becomes permanent or not depends on him. He's got to enroll in Starfleet Academy, study real hard, learn all the operations, every function of the ship. And Riker's going to make a duty schedule for Wesley, heavy on the study. Riker asks, sir, shall I send for Dr. Crusher? And Picard says, why? Is someone ill? I lost it. He's basically like, do you want us to have your mom come up here so, she can find out about the thing, or would you rather tell her later? Yeah. And Wes is like, no, I think I'll hang out with you guys for a little while and tell my mom later.
Oh.
Congratulations, Wesley, the boy, off to the next adventure.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'll be glad to be relieved of this cargo.
Me too.
It is done, and perhaps just as well.
Yeah, but I learned something today.
I sincerely hope that this is the last time that I find myself here.
You just don't get it, do you, Jean-Luc? You see, of all the species, yours cannot abide stagnation. Change is at the heart of what you are. That is the exploration that awaits you. Not mapping stars and studying nebula, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
You know how many times I've been told in my life, anytime I'm doing something that I don't know how to do, but someone thinks I can do it, and they're like, fake it until you make it, Allie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And then I also, I know people like this, and I don't really like it, but they're like, all you got to do is sound really confident.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you're right, because people believe you. And that's like the issue, I guess, I have with Kaczynski,
Yeah.
knowing he doesn't really know anything and but just basically bullshitting his way from ship to ship.
Yeah. Yeah, we've all worked with somebody like that.
And he says it so confidently that he's wrong, he be doing harm, and people take it in because someone says it confidently, they immediately believe them.
Yep. Humility is a humanist value we don't often talk about, and this guy needed a heavy dose.
Yeah.
But often Star Trek puts us into situations where we should be humble and realize that while we think we know so much about the world, in reality, like, there are so many unknowns. And how arrogant are we to think that we're like the pinnacle of evolution and we've got all the answers to life in the universe? Like, we really are toddlers in an evolutionary timescale. To Q's point, a savage child race. And humility is something we really should practice intentionally in light of that idea.
Yeah. It was nice to see him show a little bit of humility at the end when he's like, it wasn't me. And I thought he would, most people, when they get caught out like that, they would just deny, and they double down. Instead, he was like, okay, it wasn't me.
Yeah. Yep. And the idea that we know so much about our own universe, our own galaxy, whatever, in this Star Trek universe. Here we are in a different place, but we have all this advanced technology and knowledge, and yet far beyond the edges of our galaxy, or even 2 or 3 over down the block, you find yourself back at step 1 and not knowing anything. Because now we're in a place where thought is like in control of all the things, and just everything functions differently in this other place. And so you're kind of humbled to like, oh, well, maybe we don't really know as much as we thought we did. So for the whole crew, right, that's a moment of humility.
Yeah.
I really love the Traveler character as an outsider who is also just exploring the galaxy.
Yeah.
Like the Starfleets do, but whose methods are a little unorthodox. How did you feel about the whole hijacking starships to explore idea? Because that's basically what this dude's doing.
I think it's a little dangerous and presumptuous and a little selfish. I mean, I get it though. He doesn't mean any harm, but he is kind of doing harm. And if he wasn't able to get them back, then that they would have been stuck there. So
yeah,
like I appreciate that. Yeah, it can be harmful even when you don't mean any harm. And you're innocent and you're a good person. You could still be fucking somebody's life up.
I also love the setups we're getting for Wesley's character growth and arc. The way he's like, oh shit, time and space and everything are connected in ways no humans understand. And the Traveler's like, shh, boy, they might hear you. Quiet.
Yeah.
Like now Wesley carries a secret knowledge. And I liked that.
I like that they're giving him, he's not just a kid. Because, kids often get overlooked. And all the time, brushed under the rug. Get out of here, boy. What are you doing there? And
yeah,
they're giving him a little bit more of a weight, like in the series. So he's not just a kid. Stop treating him like he's nothing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. This show really highlights like how sometimes adults think of children as, like we've talked before, we raised our kids from birth as if they were just little tiny humans. Like we didn't baby talk to them. We didn't, all of that kind of stuff. We didn't, I mean, maybe we were, not always age appropriate when we talk to our kids about things, but we've always just talked to them like they're just little people, And I think a lot of that approach for me at least came from seeing and knowing like the whole like kids are to be seen and not heard bullshit, and like, if we have company over, you have to be this perfect little angel. That whole like societal expectation that a whole set of like generations had on their children was harmful. And I think like this is a great way to kind of point out like you're ignoring this kid, and yeah, he might be a kid, but he's more than just a kid. He has potential, he has knowledge, and just because he's not an adult is no reason to ignore him.
Right. And we don't, it's not like somebody's going to come around and tell you what your kids are going to be. But that shouldn't matter as far as how you treat them right now.
Yeah.
No matter what they're going to be, they all should always be valued and treated, like a person.
Did anybody die on this episode?
I'm not sure, but I wrote a rhyme about it. Want to hear it? Here it goes.
We're here together to honor our friend and comrade. We will all find time to grieve for her in the days that are ahead. But for now, she has asked that we celebrate her life with this.
Beyond the veil of space and time, no maps, no charts, no grand design, while Kaczynski was Delulu with false pride, all the while true knowledge walked by his side. Encountering Wesley was quite a swerve, as his intention was only to observe. He sat down at the controls, alone, and faded into the great unknown.
Rest in peace, the Traveler.
Rest in peace, maybe?
Maybe.
We don't know.
He winked out, we know that much.
Yeah.
Where he is now, we don't know.
We can handle all the pleasantries later. Now, let's get down to business.
I am willing to pay handsomely for you.
I think you've had a little too much to drink.
Now, what do you know about my money?
Your money?
The money he stole!
You stole his money?
Those vouchers I gave you were every bit as good as Latinum.
You can spend Latinum almost anywhere. Those vouchers are only good at your bar.
We want to thank everyone who supports the show on Patreon. We especially want to thank our founding admirals. A special thanks to Russell, Allie, Peter, Sarah, Sherry, and Bruce. Thank you, patrons.
Thanks, guys.
Captain, Starfleet Academy is requesting an update on our estimated arrival.
Finalists, please take your seats.
I must admit you have a very fast mind.
Once I realized it was a trick question, there was only one answer.
Although only one student will be chosen for the Academy, any of you could easily qualify. Candidates, good luck.
You got called to the superintendent's office. It's a story I'd like to hear.
All right, Becca's back now with the exciting conclusion of this week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge for Where No One Has Gone Before. Remind us the question.
Eric Minook, who played the Traveler, had originally auditioned for what series regular role?
Yes, and we were very confident in our answer of Data.
That's correct.
Affirmative.
Woohoo! Yay!
All right.
Yeah, I don't think it would have made a good Data.
I don't either. No, Brent Spiner really brought a lot to that character. Yeah. All right, next week then we'll be reviewing Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 7, Lonely Among Us. What is the question for Lonely Among Us?
The diamond-shaped statue in the Antican guest quarters is a recycled prop. What other Trek productions did this appear in?
Holy shit. Okay, I'm going to say...
It was one of the movies.
Yeah, I was going to say the original series and one of the movies.
I think it was one of the movies. But I don't know which one. Do we have to say which one?
Yeah.
Fuck. One of the ones with Kirk in it.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. I'm going to say the original series and the motion picture. That's my guesses.
I'll definitely say the original series, but I don't know which movie to say.
You got the motion picture, The Wrath of Khan, The Search for Spock, The Voyage Home, and The Final Frontier. Boom, baby.
Let's do... I'm just going to pick one at random. The Wrath... Was it Khan?
Wrath of Khan?
Yeah.
All right, well, we've put in our guesses. If you want to play along, you know how to do that. Go out to your social media, share this episode with the hashtag Starfleet Challenge and your answer, and we will pick out a winner. Next time on Humanist Trek, Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 7, Lonely Among Us.
Glory to your house.
Make it so, number 1.
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcasts. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.